and Estonia continues to make critical investments in its own defense. Your strong defense spending and procurement of new capabilities are crucial in deterring attacks against NATO. The United States stands beside you as a friend and as an ally. You can see that commitment in our recent deployment of U.S. forces in Estonia, including the HIMARS multiple launch rocket system and our infantry. Mr. Minister, we've just come from an important meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group and a successful NATO defense ministerial. Putin thought that he could divide NATO, but his aggression achieved just the opposite. The NATO alliance is more united and stronger than I've ever seen it. Now, we had a very highly productive discussion today on strengthening our collective defense in response to Russia's reckless assault on Ukraine. NATO is strengthening its deterrence and defense in the eastern part of the alliance. And the United States is also enhancing its presence along the alliance's eastern flank. And will maintain a persistent rotational presence in the Baltics. So I'm confident that our two proud democracies will work together to meet any challenge. And together, we'll continue to strengthen transatlantic security and to defend the rules-based international order that keeps us all safe. So thank you very much. And so now we'll take a couple of questions.
ERR, please.
Thank you. Johanna Stralla from Estonian Public Broadcasting. Question to Secretary Austin. What should the US and Estonia do together to further reduce the possibility of Russian aggression? And should things go sour, how can we be sure that US troops will fight with Estonia from the very first moment? But I'm also curious, why has it been difficult to say that Russia has to lose the war in Ukraine, and when do you see that happening?
So the first part of the question is, what can we do together to deter aggression in the future? I think the first thing that we can do is what we're already doing, and that is working together along with allies and partners to provide Ukraine the much-needed security assistance that it requires to be able to be successful in defending its sovereign territory. Now, we've seen them make good use of the capabilities that we provided to this point. They won the Battle of Kharkiv. They won the Battle of Kyiv. They won the Battle of Kherson. They've inflicted significant damage on Russia's land forces. And they've held their own in a very contested battle in the Donbass. And so this fight will continue to evolve, and we will do everything we can working together to ensure that we're providing them the means to be successful. And I think we've all been very, very impressed by what we've seen from the Ukrainian forces. Their leadership has held together. The forces have remained committed to being successful in defending their sovereign territory. So that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question, I think, was whether or not we would be here in the event of an attack on Estonia. You know, I'll just point to what our President Biden, has said a number of times, and what I've also said. Our commitment to Article 5 is ironclad. We take that very seriously, and we'll live up to our commitments. We also said, back at Madrid, our president made a decision to rotate forces in and out of the Baltics on a consistent basis in a heel-to-toe fashion so that we had consistent presence. We've lived up to that, and we'll continue to live up to it. And the final thing I would just point out to you is that prior to Russia's invasion, I met with your Minister of Defense, and I told him that if Russia invaded Ukraine, we would deploy forces to Estonia the next day. And we did. We were the first to be here, and we meant every word we said, and we'll live up to our commitments going forward. So we are committed to Article 5, and you can bet on that. So.
Do you want to add anything?
Well, I believe we can have time with Johannes all the time, so I rather give the opportunity to the others.
So we have time for one U.S. question for both minister.
Hi, Ellie Watson, CBS. First for Secretary Austin. You said yesterday countries are working to move equipment like more armored vehicles into Ukraine, but much of it is not there yet. And the NATO Secretary General said the Russian offensive has already started. Do you believe the Russian offensive has begun? And when does the window close to get all of this equipment in order to make a difference? And for the minister, is it already too late for all of this equipment to get in order to make a difference ahead of spring? If Russia is not stopped in Ukraine this year, is Estonia next?
Well, thanks, Ellie. In terms of whether or not Russia has started its offensive, what we're seeing, as you've heard me say before, is Russia continue to introduce large numbers of troops into the theater. Those troops are ill-equipped and ill-trained, and because of that, they're incurring a lot of casualties, and we expect that that will continue. We've also seen them increase their artillery fires in the Bakhmut area, and Bakhmut's been a contested area for some time. We expect to see that continue as well. In terms of whether or not we can get equipment there in a timely fashion, this is something that we're working on each and every day. And so for the equipment that's coming into theater, we'll bring it in, we'll train troops on that equipment, and we're training troops, by the way, in a number of different places. For example, Sweden is providing CV-90s, which is an armored personnel carrier. And they'll train troops on those vehicles in Sweden. Germany is providing mortars. They're training troops on the employment of the mortars and also maneuver training in Germany. We're training troops on how to properly employ the Bradley infantry fighting vehicles and Stryker vehicles in Germany as well. But we're also training them on maneuver and the integration of fires and combined arms training. So a number of things are coming together. We've really laid out a detailed plan on how we're going to bring things in support of Ukraine and provide them that gear. So this is a work in progress, but it's something that our leaders are working on very, very diligently. And again, it's Ukraine's fight. We're going to provide them all the support that we can possibly provide them so that they can have the best chance of being successful in the upcoming offensive.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that question, and definitely it's very good to continue from where Lloyd just stopped. That this is exactly what we need to do, that we need to help Ukraine as long as needed and for as much as needed. So this is for first. Secondly, you asked that, is it too late? It's never too late. When there is a hope and when there is a last man standing, there is a chance to win this war. And as long we, as international allies, international partners of Ukraine, can deliver them what they need, then we see how courageous Ukrainians are. How big is the motivation of Ukrainians, that they will never give up of their land or of their country. So they will fight for their land, for their people, and they will fight as long their country is free again. So it's not too late, and it will never be too late. That's for first. Is Estonia next one? Well, for that, we are doing our maximum to prevent it. So deterrence is one key word here, and this is exactly why NATO is coming out with the new regional plans